Hey guys, welcome to the Libri Labra book club. I am joined today by my husband John and book club VIP Tom Brennan, and
Howdy.
We will be talking about Next Year in Havana by Chanel Cleeton. Now, this is a book that was part of one of my 3 selections for the month, and this is what got chosen for the month of September. September was my birthday month, and also it was the start of Hispanic Heritage Month, so I thought it would be a great read to kick things off. We will definitely be getting into spoilers in the book, so if you haven't read it yet and you don't want to be spoiled, then go read it and come back and then watch the video. But we will share our initial thoughts without being spoilerish, maybe for like a couple minutes, and then we'll jump into hardcore spoilers. So, initial thoughts.
I enjoyed it. I mean, I guess go ahead and get this out of the way now because we're gonna end up talking about it. But since Tom brought it up in the initial chat, I couldn't help but not see it. It was ridiculous. So she says, "My heart pounds," or "My heart is pounding" so many times. That kind of hurt my score a little bit. Thank you, Tom, for pointing that out. By the way.
Like you wouldn't have noticed.
She even said that. She's like, "We would have noticed that." I'm like, "Yeah, but later."
I think probably about the part where Tom was at when he said it was when we would have been like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, exactly. But we knew it right off the bat. But it's fine. I definitely enjoyed the book. I feel like I learned a little bit from it, at least. I don't know how accurate the historical references were, but it kind of made us look into that history a little bit more than we would have originally. So I definitely enjoyed it, even though, everything is all about love and romance.
But was it really? Was it not about Cuban politics?
There was a lot of that.
Okay. Tom, what are your initial thoughts?
I thought the book was okay. How do I put this? As I was reading it, I thought of books along the same lines that I liked better. So take that for what you will. Like, for example, I know you guys, I'm not sure you guys liked it as much as I did, but like Love in the Time of Cholera, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about that when I was reading this. Or for the sisters vibe, there's the book, The 14 Sisters of Emilia Montez O'Brien by Oscar Hijuelos, which is a really, really good book. But that's when it's like, well, if I was going to go to these, I was like, go for this one for the romance and this one for the family angle. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, it was okay to me. But the other question I have is, where the hell was her editor? But that's another story.
So for me, I was really excited to pick it up, and I knew that it was going to be dual perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I learned a lot about Cuban politics. At the very least, there's more of an interest there for me because, I am Cuban American, but I don't think I've ever really dived into the political aspect of it. And what's really funny is that growing up around my family, I know that there was one part of my family that used to constantly visit the other part, and it was just a thing because we lived like literally on the same block as each other, like right next door to each other. But growing up as a child, what I remember is that they would always come over and then get into an argument and leave in a huff. And like, as a child, you just know like, oh, the adults are arguing. But looking back, I can see that what they were arguing was they would come over, they'd start having some drinks, then they'd relax, and then they'd start talking about Cuban politics, and they would get angry at each other, and then they would go and like separate. Mm-hmm. And so it was just kind of interesting seeing a little bit more in regards to Fidel Castro and why people liked him and why people didn't like him, because I don't think I ever really stopped to think about that or consider that.
Right.
So I think my cousin suggested a couple of documentaries to me, so I think I'll probably go and watch them after this. And so I appreciate the interest and the kind of toe in the water into Cuban politics that I just hadn't really been introduced. And there were a few things in there that that really resonated with me as a Cuban American, and kind of feeling like I wasn't Cuban enough, or not, just there were things in there like that resonated with me. So I appreciated that. But at the same time, I don't think the writing was amazing. I don't think
it was serviceable. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I keep having this issue, and I have to think about this before we get started, but I'm turning my head at dumb angles because of the glare in my glasses. I'm going to go put my contacts in.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
So I will give John a moment to do that. But
you guys keep talking.
I know, I'm not going to.
Was one of those documentaries the Buena Vista Social Club?
No, but I remember my godparents having like a viewing party for that, and at the time I didn't even know why. I just knew it was like a Cuban band or something.
Cuban thing, yeah.
Yeah. So I've heard of them, and I know of that movie, but I haven't like sat down to watch it. I probably saw pieces of it as my family was watching it. But no, that wasn't one of the documentaries. Although, why not add it to the list? I think it was more.
It's really good. It is. I've seen it before. It's good. All about Cuban music and such, but it gives you, like, if you haven't seen what they're talking about, like in Havana, gives you an idea. Oh, that's what, with the old car, the vintage cars and whatnot, because they go into that as well. So.
No, the one that she had recommended was specifically about Castro, I think.
Oh, okay.
And his rise to power, and it was really funny because as I was reading the book, of course, like, I'm starting to question my roots, question what I saw growing up, question conversations I remember overhearing. And so I called my eldest aunt. She's like my great aunt.
Sure.
And I moved away from my family about 10 years ago. So that connection to Spanish, like, I've lost it. Can I understand it all still? Yes, but I have trouble speaking it, which is unfortunate. But so I was telling her that I was reading this book, and I told her that, it starts off with Batista in power, and she was like, oh, he was terrible. And then I think that's when they left. That's when my family fled Cuba. So it was when Batista was in power, before Fidel Castro had taken over. And then she had said something along the lines was, Fidel was bad too, but they couldn't get him out of that position. Right. And then we kept talking. And then, like, since she's lived here for, however long she's lived here, then we started talking about U.S. politics. And she was like, the things that are going on now, I can't believe it. She was talking about how she always makes sure to vote and all this other stuff. And And then she said something like, she's like, I don't know how I would survive without those shows late at night. And I was like, what shows? And she's like, that's Stephen Colbert. She's like, I don't miss that. Oh, okay.
That's totally not where I was expecting you to go.
Okay. It was so funny to me to hear her say that. Nice. She's like, I won't miss that for the world.
Very good. Very good. But I think that's the book's strongest suit, really, is about how it talks about identity politics. It's like, there's a few points where Marisol asserts that she's Cuban, but you're not. You don't have that experience. You don't have that experience of the government looking over your shoulder. It's like, oh, that was one of the things that, oh, hey, those are two guys. Hey, they were at the church. Now they're here. And nothing is ever said about it again. Do you think they're government agents following it? That's like, yeah, stuff like that. It's like, what happened?
And that's just like really, really intense, because I guess I knew that it was a certain way in the past, but I had no idea that it might still be that.
Oh, yeah.
So that was just really intense to read about. And I know that, I don't know, it's scary to think of living in those conditions, and yet there's people that stay there and they just deal with it, and they survive and they cope as much as they can.
Right.
But I think something that bothered me was how little I was able to relate to Elisa and Marisol in regards to their wealth.
Right.
Because that almost felt like not that it I'm sure it has some accuracy somewhere. I'm sure there were rich Cuban families that, can relate to that story. But I felt like it almost felt like fantasy fluff to me,
Mhm.
because I was like, my family didn't know that. I don't know anybody whose family was rich and wealthy in Cuba, so they were kind of like closed off from a lot of the things that native Cubans experienced. But then to come over to the United States and still be really wealthy, I don't know. I didn't really identify with that. So I was like, really? Like,
Well, that's the only way she could have that star-crossed lovers thing for Elisa and, what's the guy's name?
Pablo.
Pablo. Yeah.
and then of course, both of those. Hey, we're getting into really spoilerish things now.
Yeah.
So both of those relationships were just so insta-lovey that it was just.
Yeah. I was like, oh, come on, really?
There was no build. I mean, it could have been there could have been a lot more detail in a lot of the areas in that book. There's a few different things. It could have been a little bit more detail to give a little bit more information on what's going on and how things could have happened.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And I hate to say it, but I feel like a lot of it was just. I'm not usually bothered by predictability.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also a pretty good guesser intuitively, so I have to not be that bothered by predictability. But it felt kind of predictable because I was just like, oh, this is going to happen. I was like, Christina's lying, first of all.
Yeah.
That's number one. I know she's lying. She's not still married to him.
And for this story to proceed, yes, this has to happen, yeah.
And then I knew pretty soon on, I was like, she had a baby. Her and Pablo had a baby. Or else there would be no reason to like be looking backwards in this fashion. Like the whole thing with her wanting to go back to Cuba and what did you think about, where she finally decided to pour her grandmother's ashes?
That seemed to be the proper place. I mean, the Malecon.
I mean, I agree with that. That felt like
right.
Perfect and it made sense. I did see people in reviews said that it was like haphazard and that after doing all this searching that she just dumped him on the bridge. And I was like, did you miss like the whole thing?
Well, I can see where they're coming from because it seems like it wasn't very well planned out, but it seemed like it was planned out that she was holding on to these ashes for everything, and then it happened to be that's the last place where she decided it was going to go. But that seems like a rookie author thing. Like I really believe there's a couple things. How many books is Cleeton?
She's written a lot. This is her first historical fiction, though.
Okay. Well, it seems like there's a few things in here. There's like different tropes and different like things that are in there that it just seems like it was like you said it was very predictable. But see, with all the books that I've read in the past, there's a lot of predictability, and I predict the predictability.
Right.
It's like I know it's there. It's just it's obvious things, but there's just too many things in here that were a little too obvious, and.
But I don't think that was a half-hearted decision. That
it
decision was made from the
but I can
beginning.
see how they're seeing that. But it was more of an arc. It's like, oh, I'm gonna have her hold on to it throughout all this time that she's there, but I'm gonna pick the right spot at the end, at the right moment.
Well, I mean, the whole point of her visit was that. So if she had already dumped them, there'd really be no reason for her.
Yeah, but she met a totally hot guy her first day on the island.
Right?
So, yeah, ashes? What ashes? Yeah.
But I mean, like the whole thing, it just seems like it was very, I guess, linear is maybe the word I'm looking for. Like it was
already planned out.
It was planned. Yeah, it was planned out from the start, and then she just had to write details into it.
To the end, yeah. How do we find it?
Right.
The start and end point now, how to fill that in.
Right, exactly.
I mean, yeah, because the minute she found the letters, I was like, well, we know why she's here. She obviously wants to connect her grandmother's ashes back to, the love of her life, whoever that was.
Yeah, and then, he died a long time ago. No, he didn't. Oh, no. He's alive. He's going to find her. Something.
Well, on that note, that was like when Guillermo tells her that, he died. I was like, okay, interesting move. You have about 100 pages left of this book, so I'm wondering how it's going to proceed. But, of course, surprise! Here he is, So.
I mean, I guess I guess I agree with what you're saying, and maybe that's what I felt, that like that path was already.
It was,
and it was just
already
like
determined.
A little bit of side stuff,
right?
It felt.
Let's see if we can. Okay, this is where we're gonna go. Let's make sure there's some sidetrack. There's some things to throw them away a little bit. Nah.
And then,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I was gonna say, it seemed like Pablo and was Jose the other one? No, Luis. Pablo and Luis.
Yeah.
That they didn't really have strong personalities in themselves, that they were almost just there just to serve that political fill-in, because that's kind of where all the information came from. They were the revolutionaries. They were the ones that wanted change, and they were the ones that like, oh, you have to see this differently, and you have to understand, and da, 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 da.
But Marisol, in a sense, is the proxy for the reader. I think that's why she makes Luis a historian, because like, well, we the readers are coming in like we had almost no idea of what Cuban history is like, so we have a boyfriend's historian to tell us. He gives a tour of Havana, and by the way, he's hot. Yeah, and he cooks, and he's a musician.
Cuban.
And he's all these things.
Yeah.
Cuban.
So anyway, carry on.
I have to ask. I don't even remember her saying that. I guess I didn't even like.
No, he had a distinguished quality to him.
Yeah,
I think she said
it was that beard.
She said. I was about to say, she said he had a beard, and I checked out. I was like, no thanks.
It's an interesting dynamic these romance readers have. That's all I can say is because,
were you going to ask a question? It sounded like you were going to
just about in terms of spreading the ashes. I just thought it was interesting that, the obvious choice. And, when I was reading it, I was like, well, why don't you just put him in, their house, because that's where she lived. But, it was the sense of ownership that, they don't own that anymore.
Right.
And this is the Malecon is one place in Cuba, apparently, that they still feel they could own, that Elisa and Pablo would feel that that's theirs. You know what I mean? So I thought that was the perfect place to drop them.
I mean, I assumed it was just strictly because that was where they met. That was where her life kind of started.
And they own that space because of that experience. That's what I mean. Mm-hmm. But home is not home anymore. It just underlines that theme, right. I guess. So.
And then, they mentioned that Anna was her best friend, but even I don't know. I just didn't really get a really good sense of who Elisa and Marisol were.
Then let me ask a question. Do you think the book would have benefited in being two books, one for each main character exclusively, like one for Marisol and one for Elisa?
If there were more details.
Yeah, if that meant that there was no insta-love and there was more build-up.
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Then I think so. Because I feel like really all I learned about Elisa was she came from a very wealthy family. Her family was supporters of Batista in whatever way, whether it be financially or whatever, that they were kind of excluded from a lot of the terrible things that were happening in Cuba. And then she just so happened to instantly fall in love with someone who made her start questioning things. But it just didn't feel like a deep questioning. I don't know. I don't feel like there was enough challenge in there. You would
Possibly.
think that something that political and that, because let me tell you, if my son came home and brought a girl home that was very different with us politically, she'd be getting an earful.
If he brought home a MAGA.
But
See.
Because there's a point where she even asked her dad for help, and he says don't ever see him again. I just don't feel like there was enough. What's the word I'm looking for? Not drama, but
that was melodrama, not drama. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, just there weren't enough obstacles, I guess.
Right.
Enough challenges. I don't know.
I think challenges was the word I was gonna say, but
the thing about identity politics here, in the sense that Marisol and Elisa can both claim to be Cuban, but you know, most Cubans' experience, from what the book tells us, is much different from theirs.
Right.
So what does being Cuban mean? And a lot of the times, and this is not the only author I noticed this with, a lot of books cast in these countries, including the United States, will say, "Oh, this Italian pride or this Cuban pride or this." It's like, I don't think that's necessarily for one people. You're allocating it to a particular nation, but I don't think that's the case. Like everybody's or most people are house proud in the sense that maybe small, maybe but it's yours and you take good care of. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think the author did study, like I think she got a degree in like world politics or something along those lines. So I think she definitely did her research, but I was still kind of somewhat disappointed to learn that she had never been to Cuba.
Okay, that's the difference between research and experiencing it.
Right.
So,
while I totally relate to being a Cuban American and having those stories passed down and how much of my culture I was still able to retain because my family like embedded it in us, like when they came to the United States, they all stayed together almost in the same exact neighborhood where we were able to still help each other out and a lot of stuff like that. So holidays, we were just very, very close. And so a lot of the traditions we kept. So those were some of the things that I loved seeing in the book. Like, for example, where she talks about eating the 12 grapes at New Year's. Like, that was something growing up that I took for granted. I was like, no, other people don't do this. Like, it was just something that we always did. So kind of...
Wait, what?
Well, I know it was new to me. I didn't know that, so that's something I learned from the book.
Did you say, wait, what?
Yeah. What's about the 12 grapes?
So for New Year's, like, I don't know if it's like immediately because I haven't done it in a while. I haven't been around my family, but I think it's like right before midnight. You eat 12 grapes, one for each month, and it's supposed to be good luck for the new year. And that was something that we always did. So like right before midnight, somebody in the family would be handing out little things, little plates with 12 grapes in it so that we could eat them. And so it's kind of like, oh yeah, I missed that. And I think there was a few good quotes in the book as well. I appreciated her reflection on ojalá. That's something that I've heard plenty of times. I've never... I knew what it meant. I've heard people say it, and I've heard it a lot. But I appreciated the way she kind of reflected on it and how she talked about it. But yeah, I was disappointed to learn that she had never been to Cuba. Because I would feel like if you're going to write a book, even with all that research, if you're going to write a book about...
Maybe that's why it seems so thin.
Yeah.
Because you write what you know.
Right.
Interesting.
Wow.
Like, even, I'm sure even something like just being on the Malecon, she may have written it a little bit differently.
Her heart would have pounded.
Yes.
John.
All I can say about that is when I read, I do the Kindle Fire and it's like a tablet, so I do it long ways. And at the top, it splits the page in half, of course. And at the top of the first half, like, my heart pounds. The first line on that one. Then on the second page, my heart pounds again. It's like, holy crap, she's doing it like in the same page now.
Is that? I feel like no. See, I did see that because I was reading it, and it was like it was on one side and then on the other side.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was the same person though. I think it was like one was Elisa and one was Marisol, but still,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Well, we were actually during BookNet Fest. Someone on the panel was talking about how she was reading somebody else's work, and they're like, she's like 65 M dashes. I can't believe she actually went through and counted out how many times they used an M dash and right. And I was actually curious. Did you on the Kindle? Did you happen to search to see how many times that showed up?
I have not done so, but I will when I go and find my Kindle.
I mean, there were slight variations.
Well done.
There were slight variations because my heart.
Yes, my heart thundered.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, every time it popped up, I was it's just. I made a noise or something. I was like, "Oh my god, again!" But then he actually said something different. I was like, yes.
Yes. It's the same thing, but okay. It's different words. Hooray.
No, it was. I mean, I can't.
Yeah, but she also when what was it? Elisa was a child. Her hand went down to down to her stomach. That was the thing when she got pregnant. So it's like,
Maybe
kind of thing when you read it, it's like, okay, chapter 1, okay, my heart pounds. Okay, chapter 2, yeah, my heart pounds. And say, okay, maybe it's just a thing. You're doubling down on it now. You're doing it every chapter, and it's like it was just surprising to me.
Man, I wonder if it's one of those. Let's see if anybody notices.
Yeah, it's almost like a drinking game. It's like, all right.
Like an editor should have noticed.
Exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
that was your editor.
Yeah, but I mean, we can't pick on it too much. But it was just. Thanks, Tom.
I mean, it kind of like I don't want to.
No, you would have noticed. That might help. I would hope so.
I don't want to harp on that.
Right.
But it did. I feel like it did pull us out of the story every time.
It did. Yeah. Exactly, and that's the thing. Next to an author inserting themselves into a story, that's like like the second cardinal sin almost. So anyway, go ahead.
Interesting.
So I had told. I think like there was a very initial connection to Elisa, and that was mostly because I had told John that my great grandmother had, with her included, there was 8 sisters, and all of them had names that started with the letter E, and one of them was Elisa.
Makes monogramming easier.
Oh man.
So it was like, oh, Elisa, like she was already part of my family. So.
Lisa.
What did you guys think about the reasoning for Christina and Luis having divorced? Like, did that sound reasonable?
Well, I do at least I can say that she did put a little bit more detail in that when Marisol ended up talking to Christina later, because she was like, he will always choose Cuba over you.
Except when he doesn't, apparently.
Right.
But
I mean, like, forward. But that was, I don't know. Maybe that was their way of cementing their love, instead of, because he didn't actually choose Cuba over her that time around. There was a better than, less than, or greater than, less than going on here. Cuba is greater than Christina. Marisol is greater than Cuba.
I like that equation. Yeah. So if Marisol's hotter than Cuba, then Cuba's hotter than Christina, then Marisol must be hotter than Christina.
Oh my god!
Before we go with her,
I feel like I would like to hear of him in the United States and how he
adjusted after.
Yeah,
this.
how he adjusted, because I mean, as far as I know, he's never left Cuba, right?
Right.
Is that what they said?
Correct.
So for him, like, this is a whole new world.
Yeah, and I would have liked to have heard like Elisa's experience too. Yeah, like what was it like for them to? And on a related note, the fact that it was her grandfather was not who she thought it was. That's mildly interesting. But I would have liked to have seen like what would have happened if they had a story where it was the dad that found out. Oh yeah, your dad's actually not who we thought he was.
Right.
Like it was a little bit further removed from where the action was, I thought.
Well, now she's got to go home and talk to the people that she does know that knew all this had happened.
Yeah, but we don't get that, unfortunately.
Well,
right.
There's a lot of potential for character growth on both sides of the equation.
Yeah.
So.
Right, but my point is that we're never going to see that. Like that.
Right.
That was such, because that's going to be hard. Being like, I went to Cuba and I found out.
Yeah.
That who we thought was our grandfather.
You hear this, Miss Cleeton? There's another book here.
But I did see that she said that she had not planned to revisit, Marisol and Luis or their relationship or anything like that. So,
really? Ooh.
Which is a shame because they, that's why that was Elisa's relationships that reminded me of Love in the Time of Cholera, because she had the one love when she was young, and then she has the second love when she's older, and how those two. I thought that would have been a really interesting story to tell, but of course we didn't get that. So
I mean, I don't know. I think as a character, I really, really liked Beatrice because I kind of felt like she was the only one standing up for what she believed in outside of maybe Pablo and...
I think Beatrice was the twin, right?
Yes, the hot one.
Well,
Oh,
might be a little biased there, right?
That's why she's portrayed in the book.
But see, I really think there was more character growth with her than anybody else, and she wasn't even the main character.
Right.
Like, because not only did she have to go through another spoiler alert here, her twin passing, but I mean, like, yeah.
Oh, then I missed that whole thing. That her and Alejandro were twins.
Yeah.
I must have missed that whole thing because I didn't.
It's okay.
I didn't realize that.
Okay. So, but yeah, I mean, like, amongst everything that was going on, she was a side story. Yet we got a little bit more information out of her than we did, like, some of the main characters.
I mean, she was just ready to throw down the whole book, and I appreciate that.
Well, because you actually have family members that are like that, though.
But to her credit, though, I got the impression that it wasn't that she was like for free Cuba or whatever. She was like for her brother,
right?
And whatever kept him safe. So, but fear not, lucky readers, a book about Beatrice is coming.
Oh, really?
She stuck that in at the last chapter. Are you freaking kidding me?
Oh, God.
You're going to put it in advertising for your book at the end of this one, which apparently she did. So,
I guess
well, that's how they do it, isn't it?
Yeah. I didn't realize it was a series, though.
Is it a series, or is it just
I don't know if it's going to be another book after that. Oh, so
spinoff?
It feels kind of like a spinoff.
No, because remember they said that Marisol went to it back to Beatrice, and I forget what the reasoning was, but there's something that remember Beatrice said,
literally like in the last chapter. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. She was like, wait, how did you get this?
Yeah. And apparently that book is going to go into that. So it is, to me, that's a series because they are connected. Yeah.
Okay. Right. I thought you were just talking about the excerpt at the end, not really.
That's from the book that deals with Beatrice.
Yeah. So apparently, and there's no description here, but I looked up the description of the book. Apparently, like, Beatrice is hired by the CIA, the United States CIA, to.
She told me that, and I was like, what?
To get information, and that's why she went back to Cuba. And
because she's super hot, that's why.
But what's funny is that, and I don't know if you've read this, but if you haven't, I highly recommend it. And it's called The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
Sevelin.
Okay, I was like, wait, is that
a
title or what? I'm not sure what that was.
7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Yeah.
All right, then I will suggest The 14 Sisters of Amelia Montez O'Brien.
Okay.
Numbers. Let's do it.
Yeah, that was numbers. Yeah. No, it's about an Italian photographer, O'Brien, who goes to Cuba and he marries Mariela Montez, and of course they come back to Pennsylvania and they have 15 kids. So as one does.
Oh man, I can't even like.
And I thought 8 sisters was enough.
Yeah. So it's a really good book, though. Anyway.
So Evelyn is a Cuban American Hollywood actress, and a lot of where Beatrice ended up after coming to the United States and the way she was and the way she behaved and all these marriage proposals. I don't know. It just really reminded me of Evelyn Hugo. So
I can see that.
So, and like Evelyn,
put it in Goodreads on the Goodreads form so that I'll remember.
Absolutely.
Because I won't remember clicking off here, but.
Is that your heart pounds? Is that what you're doing there, John?
Yeah, we're doing it now too, bringing it up all the time. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, we gotta stop. We can't do that.
So I think one of the things that John and I were talking about, because I'm sure you know that recently some kind of op-ed came out where somebody was talking about how they're working inside the White House with the president and kind of going against the president's interests.
Yes.
And okay, so knowing that and kind of looking at Pablo's character and how he stayed in Cuba and how he didn't agree with everything Fidel did, but that he still stayed and tried to, I guess he still wanted to work towards the changes that he wanted to see, even though he didn't agree with what people were in power. I just felt like that was a good conversation, because so many people were like, who is this person in the White House? And, shame on them. They think they're doing something good. But I mean, and you can stand up for integrity, right? Like, I believe that if you really don't, I think Booker just walked out on something recently because he was like, I can't do this. This is just ridiculous. Right. So while I believe that you should take a stand, and sometimes that means leaving, if all the people willing to take a stand left, and then all those spots were to then be filled by people who are loyal to
nobody's actually there stopping
Castro, yeah.
Right.
Then what happens? Then is that really the best option? I mean,
well, if you have hit squads coming for you, you're going to be removed anyway. That's the other thing.
Right.
Because it certainly made it sound like, if you didn't leave, you were going to be made to leave in the form of being put 6 feet under. That's what I thought.
I just thought that some of the commentary coming out about the people in the White House still trying to work for our interests and against.
Right. Well, that's a whole other issue of country versus party, but
right.
I think that's a different forum. That sort of question. In terms of the book, though, yeah, I got the impression that Pablo was like, they honored him because he did services in the past, but he wasn't really part of the regime. So he's straddled that line, I guess. So.
Do you have any other questions? I feel like there was a reading guide at the end of this book.
Yes, there was. There is.
Did the author put the reading guide in there?
I mean,
probably
the
not.
Does it. Or I could. I did highlight a few things, so let me see what I highlighted in here.
Yeah, the fact that she's actually started to marking her books is beyond me. But I'm proud that she's.
Who are you? What have you done with that?
Right. It's like, I don't know. She's and when we go to buy a book, she's like, make sure it doesn't have any creases. Make sure it doesn't have a little put. Make sure it's pretty. And then she's over here.
I like ebooks.
I'm like,
yeah, but go ahead.
It doesn't feel the same. Like, I can highlight things in an ebook, and I do, but it doesn't. Like, I can't flip through it in the same way. I don't know. It's just not the same.
I understand. Yeah. It does give books character when you see that, though, like, the highlights and, like, if people write in the margins and their notes and such, it's like,
Yeah, for a long time I was like, oh, blasphemy, how could you? But just recently I found a nonfiction book that I had highlighted, and going back like 10 years later and looking at what I felt was important, it made me very emotional. Mm-hmm. So I was like, maybe I should do this again.
There you go.
So
she also made a good point that it's more personalizing.
Yeah. And I think I would appreciate getting someone else's book with highlights in it.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, when you see that, yeah.
So, to be Cuban is to be proud. It is both our greatest gift and our biggest curse. We serve no kings, bow no heads, bear our troubles on our backs as though they are nothing at all. There is an art to this, you see, an art to appearing as though everything is effortless, that your world is a gilded one, when the reality is that your knees beneath your silk gown buckle from the weight of it all. We are silk and lace, and beneath them we are steel. And I really love that, because I think for me, especially with all the women that were in my family, seeing them come to this country, and like they kind of all became seamstresses initially. So like everyone in my family knows how to sew, but like my family is just so full of strong women that, like, I got to know my great grandmother, which I don't think many people have the privilege. And Until she like really started losing her mind, which I want to say was maybe close to her 90s. She was still going out and doing all her shopping and doing everything. And like, she didn't want to hear it. She didn't want to hear, oh, let me help you do that. She was like, no, I'll do this myself. And like, you know, my aunt who's in her 80s, she still cooks and cleans and does everything every single day. She goes shopping. She does like, it's just so impressive to see women at that age still being so strong. And so everything like that. Hold on. What else? I didn't highlight like too many things. Because I think by the time I was like, oh, I'm going to highlight, I was like halfway through the book.
No, I'm not going to say it. The usual three-word sentence.
I'm waiting with bated breath.
All right. You learn your deepest truths about yourself when you fail at something. When I failed at marriage, I learned I couldn't pretend to be someone I wasn't in order to please another person. And so...
Yeah, well, then if that's the case, then Christina, I don't know, is this a trope with women? That's a question. Oh, I'll fix him, you know. He'll love me and he won't love Cuban anymore and he'll come with me and then that'll be it.
Yeah. I would say that's definitely a trope that you see often. And I mean, like in real life, it happens all the time. Women think that they can be the savior and fix them.
That's often what attracts them to the bad boys.
And I speak to remind myself I exist. I think there's like one thing that I highlighted. You never know what's to come. That's the beauty of life. If everything happened the way we wished, the way we planned, we'd miss out on the best parts, the unexpected parts.
Truth.
And then Anna grabs one of the instruments, a laugh escaping from her lips. This is one of your mother's serving spoons, isn't it? It is. I thought this was really funny. I almost laugh at the absurdity of it. 2 Havana debutantes in our robes using my mother's finest silverware to dig in the dirt in our backyard. At that moment, I can't think of a better use for it. This seems to be a year for the tragic and the absurd. And so I just thought that was... I think she painted that picture really well of how like absurd that would be to use the finest silver to just dig a hole to... So Cubans exist in a constant state of hope. On the surface, ojalá translates to hopefully in English, but that's just on paper, merely the dictionary definition. The reality is that there are some words that defy translation. Their meaning contains a whole host of things simmering beneath the surface. There's beauty contained in the word, more than the flippancy of an idle hope. It speaks to the tenor of life, the low points and the high, the sheer unpredictability of it all. And at the heart of it, the word takes everything and puts it into the hands of a higher power, acknowledging the limits of those here on earth, and the hope, the sheer hope, the kind you hitch your life to, that your deepest wish, your deepest yearning will eventually be yours. And then she says, I'm forever caught between 2 languages. I learned Spanish before anything else, grew up speaking both languages at home and at school. In my most vulnerable moments, the ones when I feel things most deeply, when I hope, when I fear, when I love, it's Spanish that comes to me first. And I was also taught Spanish first. I learned English in school. So many obstacles in front of us, and yet there's a natural rhythm to this. It is quintessentially Cuban to help another find a new life in the United States, just as those before me did for my family. I highlighted more than I thought I did. We can always know the people we love as well as we think we do, Marisol. Our love is tangled up in our expectations, our perception of reality, and you never know what people really think. They often keep their deepest emotions locked away. And that's about it. But let's see, just so we have a couple more questions and other reading guides in here. There were, I think you were saying, which we didn't really touch upon, was that you didn't feel that the voices were distinguished enough.
Yeah, between the 2 characters, they almost seemed like the same character. If you didn't know that they were going back and forth, if you weren't paying attention to that, you would actually probably end up confusing the 2, because they seem like the same woman. Now I understand grandmother, mother, daughter would have a lot of the same characteristics and probably share some of the same personality traits, but that doesn't mean that they're not two completely different women.
Right.
And especially coming from two different backgrounds. One actually growing up in a rich family in Cuba with the fear, with the well, that maybe they didn't have the fear. Maybe because you said that they didn't have this, they didn't live the same way that the other Cubans did. And then one that grew up in America, hearing stories about Cuba and what it was and what the grandmother wish had been. I figure that they should have been two more discreet characters. Like there should have been more details. Yeah, did I say discreet?
Yeah.
That's the wrong word.
Sorry.
But yeah, I really believe that they should have a little bit more detail to separate the two.
Especially since what they were going through was just so similar.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they met a Cuban revolutionary.
I mean, they were definitely mirrored stories.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That's probably why they used the two narrators in the Audible book.
Yeah, but even they weren't like super.
I know.
Yeah, they were very similar because I couldn't tell them apart.
It wasn't about 3/4 through, then I was like, wait a minute, this is a different person talking to me right now.
And then what's interesting is that I'm reading another book for Hispanic Heritage Month called I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter. And the narrator for that was also the narrator.
Oh, okay.
She has a habit of doing this, actually.
I don't know how.
The same month, like there's always two books at the same time. That was hey, this is the same narrator. maybe the pool of narrators is just that thin.
I don't know, but what was interesting was that in the other book that I'm reading, I felt like her performance is a lot better. So I don't know if it was the direction they were given in this book in particular.
Possibly.
Yeah, because it's very.
Or is the other book's direction that they were,
Right, maybe just the character was completely different.
Also, what is the age difference between the books?
Mm.
Because if this person did this book like early on before they got better at their narrating.
Well, I mean, this book just released.
Oh, okay. So
this book is new. I mean, so is the other one. So, but the other character in I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter is like a teenage girl. So maybe that has to do with it.
Mm.
Elisa chooses to save her letters from Pablo and her memories of their romance by burying them in a box in the backyard. If you had a box in which to bury your most precious possessions, what would you choose to keep safe? I mean, my wedding dress would have been something.
How big of a box are we talking about here?
Well, it wouldn't be that big now. It probably what's left of it. Some of the jewelry.
I mean, would I bury
I don't have
jewelry?
things that I really cherish
like that.
Yeah, like that.
I mean, I probably have some things that maybe belong to my godparents.
Pictures.
I just feel like if we had any possessions that we would cherish that much, we would probably hand them down or pass them along to other family members.
Right. I mean, but you have to think of it in terms of, she had to flee the country and she couldn't really take anything with her. So
yeah,
we had to do that.
I mean, it's with the hope that one day you can come back and resurrect the box.
Playing them, right?
I don't think I have anything like that, to be honest. Like,
I'd say pictures and such would be important, but I like
nowadays
when we actually had print pictures, like
right.
So. I mean, I have, if I couldn't take anything, and burying it was a way to keep it away from other people. I had an engagement ring that was handed down to me. That was given to my godmother. So, that's probably like the most valuable thing I own, other than like my house, I guess. And I don't really wear it because I don't want to mess it up.
Sure.
So I guess that would be in there too. And then I don't know. I feel like I've dealt with so much loss in my lifetime, especially of like material possessions, whether it be by flood or fire or whatever, that at this point, you just, I mean, of course I like my things, I like my books, I like my games, but nothing to where I feel like
they need to be cherished in such a way.
So I guess really pictures would be the only thing, although I don't know if sticking pictures in the ground is the best idea, but
can't take your phone with you, spare phones.
But I do have photo albums that I would be very sad to lose. So.
Although going back to the book for a second, that was what I actually did like that scene when Pablo gave Marisol the letters from her grandmother.
Yeah, I was hoping that would happen because she had pieces missing from the story. It was only like a one-sided conversation that she was reading. Despite coming from very different backgrounds, Marisol and Luis share many similarities that bring them together as a couple. What are some examples of this? Why do you think they get along so well? Do you think they're a good influence on each other?
I have no way of telling because it was maybe that insta love is what they had in common.
Yeah, love at first sight. Done.
Yep.
Next question.
There were a few details in there, but I mean, her inner dialogue wasn't enough. I mean,
okay. Thank you for mentioning that. That to me was one of the detriments of the book. It's like, we have to think about, it's like all this navel gazing about the relationship and such. It's like, oh my God, especially with Marisol, like she has to stop and think about every single thing, that she's going through and tell the reader. It's like, we don't really need to know all this,
It really depends on how it's framed. I really think that the information could have been given in a better way.
Right.
I did read that a lot of people had complained that there was just a lot of telling and not enough showing.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. And so I can see that. If like some parts were slightly, I think the more political parts were slightly info dumpy.
Yeah. Info dumpy. We're gonna have to start using that as a term.
Yeah, I can see that as a quote on the book.
Info dumpy.
Quote, info dumping, close quote.
Let's make a hashtag out of it. Tag this video right now, info dumping. We're gonna start info dumping.
Hashtag info dumping.
That was too info dumping.
Okay, hold on. I'm trying to find a question that doesn't have to do with the
info dumping.
Hold on. Okay, sacrifice is a major theme that runs throughout the novel. How do the characters make sacrifices for one another, and what are some examples of them risking their safety and security for their loved ones? How do you think you would have acted in similar situations? I feel like I've been asking myself this every day because
just been reading other books that have it.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot of historical fiction lately, and while I appreciate it, I feel like so much of it takes place in kind of Nazi, World War II, Nazi Germany kind of time period. And, I just finished The Book Thief, so that was something that I had in mind. And I keep asking myself, like, would I risk my life to save another human being? And I want the answer to be yes. But, like, what they had to go through and what they did, I mean, like, like that has to be a struggle. That struggle for self-preservation or to help humanity. I think like those that decide to help humanity say to themselves, am I truly living if I'm not helping others? Like, is it worth living?
You're not 6 feet under, so is that there's that too, you know what I mean?
So I don't know what the answer really is. I would like to believe, I mean, you've seen me just with all the political stuff that's happening. And I mean, like every day I'm like, we have to do something. We have to volunteer. We have to donate. We have to. So I'd like to believe that I would be willing to stick myself out for.
We were at lunch yesterday and she was trying to finish a book and she was reading. She actually had audiobook in her. I had nothing to do with this. I wasn't listening to it. It was a book that she was trying to finish. Apparently she finished an entire book in a day, because she was trying to cram it so hard so she can have a conversation with a coworker who had read it already.
Oh, wow.
So I was eating, or no, it was right before we started eating, I had just got back with drinks or whatever and sat down, and she's over here. She's just crying. She's just got tears rolling down her face, and I was like, what's going on?" She's like, "I'm sorry. And apparently, it's a little girl had actually hurt herself in order to get a message across that something was about to happen.
Oh,
Gotcha. To help save somebody else." Mm-hmm. And for how old was the girl?
I don't know. She was
8,
8, 9,
somewhere in there. But still, just the idea. There's that much passion and that much like commitment in helping to save someone's life that you're willing to injure yourself or do something in order to help get a message to your father that something's bad is about to happen. So
it just, I mean, like I can't stand animals being hurt. I can't stand humans not being treated properly. I can't stand so I feel like I probably would risk my life, but I think it's easy to risk your own life. I think when it becomes a lot more difficult is when you have to consider, am I willing to risk my family's life?
Oh, that's true.
You know, so I think that's where it gets really.
Now, if her son was younger, maybe it would be more of a fear, but now he's older, it probably wouldn't be as much as one because he has a little more control over his own life.
He is interesting because he's very much like, I think he's more of a keep your head down, don't make noise kind of person. And I'm not like that. No. Just like, no.
You got We're gonna Jeff then.
Yeah, I guess he's more like his dad in that respect. Like, don't make any waves, but I'm willing to raise my voice and be loud to get attention and do what needs to be done for the cause. So
I don't know. I'm reactionary, so I wouldn't know like what to do until a situation happens. You know.
I think you would do stuff, but at the same time, I feel like you feel more powerless than you actually are. So I would probably have to heavily encourage you. I would probably have to heavily encourage you.
Where's my cattle prod? Oh, why? No reason.
Oh, fine. Okay, let's go. Let's do it. Yes.
I feel like I'm constantly like, what are you going to do? And you're like, what can I do? And I'm like, So what are your thoughts, Tom?
I think for those situations, it's, you don't know how you're going to react until you're actually put in them, and then that's, some say that's the true test of character. But in terms of the book, we see people, like the Perez's that said, oh, you supported, Batista, and then you get thrown out, and then the Fidel people come in and say, oh, they you also supported Batista, you're out. And then there's going to be a counter-revolution where, oh, well, you supported Castro, now you're, it just builds on itself, I think, which is a separate issue of what you were talking about here. I understand, but for some reason I thought of that now and I had to get it out.
So there's definitely a lot more to it than just one or the other too, because there's like certain standpoints where you either forced to or well, apparently there's a word for it that like helping somebody do something that you're not an accomplice if it was done out of fear or
right.
So that's kind of hard. I mean,
oh, you helped the cast,
that's a very
Fidel
gray area.
The thing, yeah, and then years later, the opposite. Oh, well, you did this, and well, you weren't there at the time to know the situation
right.
and such. So.
Well, I think we could probably get into our final ratings, our final star ratings. I'll let Tom go first.
I'm still conflicted. I still haven't rated the book on Goodreads yet. I still haven't reviewed it, but I'd say my honest rating is a 2.5.
Ooh.
But I would round that up to 3.
Do you want to elaborate on that, or should I go next?
Well, I mean, there are certain things, which where, like I said, where was the editor? Without getting into them. But also, it was it was okay. I mean, the story was okay. I thought, I I wasn't moved either way. I mean, was I glad when I finished it? Yay! But so what does that say too? So
I enjoyed it. I was gonna actually give it a 4 a few days ago, but after deliberating on it and talking about it, I think this is the time when us talking about it has lowered my rating versus raised my rating, because it just seems that there was so much more that could have been said, and more information, more to the book that would have given us a better insight. I'm not Cuban, so I can't say that I really related to any of the characters, but I'm one of those that I will actually read and get involved with specific characters, and I really don't have to relate. I'm taking in the story. I'm consuming it. So I'm giving it a 3. So, but it's because of.
Now keep in mind.
I can't say it again. I'm going to get in trouble.
Keep in mind, it's 3 is I liked it, and 4 is I loved it. So
I actually enjoyed it a little more than I thought. I thought I would going into it. I was going to give it a 4 because of the historical information that came out of it, and there's some of this. I didn't know who the heck Batista was. I grew up knowing Fidel was the problem, so. I learned a little bit more from it, and I definitely enjoyed a little bit of the story. But again, I'm gonna stick at 3 just to.
Okay.
So for me, the star rating tends to be the most instinctual part. I feel like as soon as I finish a book, I immediately know that was a 5, that was a 4, that was a 3. Right. And for this, I feel like I was very. I think. I've never liked people who rate with like half-star ratings, because I was like, look, Goodreads doesn't have half stars, so just decide based on what's available. But as
3 stars or 2 stars.
As I read more and more books, I'm starting to have that that instinctual inclination, like, well, this isn't a 3 and it's not a 4, so I guess it's a 3.5.
Exactly.
So that's kind of where I feel like for me. It would be like about a 3.5, but
okay.
Would you round up or down?
That's the question.
So that's the question.
That's the question here.
And that's what I've been sitting on for the last few days, and I think after giving it a lot of thought, I would round down. Okay. And I think the writing is just the writing. It's not necessarily the story, because I think there was a good story there. And there were a lot of things that I appreciated about it. And I also feel like there needs to be more stories like this, more own voices, more stuff with Hispanic characters, like just Latino characters, whatever. There needs to be more stories like that, because my whole life I've just read a lot of stories that I have never seen myself reflected in. And so I appreciate that now I'm starting to see that, and that those books exist. So I think that's where most of my hesitation comes from, because I want there to be more of these books, but if I rate them lowly, then am I helping? I don't know. I feel like the writing could have been a little bit better. So I would still give it 3 stars, but I would probably put a lot of detail in my review. Yeah. Because even though I would give it 3 stars, I don't think I would tell people not to read it. I feel like people should still read it.
Well, keep in mind, 3 stars is a good rating.
Yeah.
It
still feels like so mediocre, though.
Well, justify what the problem that you're having is saying that because us actually reading it and talking about it is putting it out there. It is actually getting people to bringing awareness to its existence. So don't your 3 stars, even if you give it a 1 or a 2 star, us doing this is going to bring more people to it. So
that's where we're at with that. So we got 2 3 stars, and did we all give it a 3 stars?
Hey, we all agreed on something.
We were all on the same page, I guess. So that's what we read for the month of September. And what we'll be reading for October is Lifelike by J.
Mr. Christoph.
Okay, good.
I enjoy that guy. Like,
Yeah.
do you follow him on Instagram and Twitter and things? Huh?
I don't. No, I do not.
No.
Not from any decision. I just haven't.
Right. Nah, he updates his Instagram pretty often,
So,
talking about things.
let me see. I don't think this description is the best as far as like letting you know what the book is about, but there's like robot gladiators.
Oh, say no more. I'm in.
I'm in.
Robot gladiators.
Cyborg assassins, and I'm sure there's a love story in there because what is a book without a love story? But
from what I understand, this guy loves metal.
Very funny. I'm gonna tell him you said that.
I'm telling you. Yeah.
I don't care.
One of the things I liked about his other book was that he did reference other like artworks and such. Like
Works of art,
reference the Princess Bride, and it's like, hey, and if you're looking for that, it's like, oh, hey, that's pretty cool, you know.
What was the last reference? Someone picked up a previous work of his as a reference to something else he did, right? Was there a Mira Corvera reference to
I don't know.
in Gemini?
Maybe.
I don't know.
A Nevernight reference or whatever.
Yeah.
I also just ordered God's Grave, so I have that coming.
Oh God, see, it's October already. That's right.
Physical copy?
Well, the last one in the trilogy is called Dark Dawn, I think.
Yeah.
And that's not coming out till next year. So, but the paperback for God's Grave is out.
So should I just go ahead and get the audiobook?
Yeah, probably. We'll do that. Actually, I think I have it on hold at the library. So. So anyway, so that's what we're reading for the month of October. We're reading Lifelike by Jay Kristoff. If you haven't read it yet and you've wanted to, please feel free to join us. You can find a link to the Goodreads group in the description below. And if you'd like to join us on camera next month for the next discussion, you can do that by signing up to become a book club VIP patron at patreon.com/Libri Labra. There's also a few other perks, and I've just added the perk of being included in the end cards at my videos. In my videos, so your name will be included at the end of my videos, and you get to select books for the club to vote on in a rotation. You also get a thank you card and a custom bookmark and a few other different perks. So thank you guys for joining me today and discussing Next Year in Havana. I think we had a pretty good discussion, and I did enjoy the book. I liked it. So looking forward to this next one, because this was not YA, but this is. So.
Robot gladiators, that's all I need to know.
Think there's any reference to space donuts?
I don't think so, but...
Space donuts.
That's a running joke between us, because we visited a panel that they mentioned that on when he was talking to Amy Kristoff. He's like, everything is cooler in space.
Amy Kaufman.
Amy Kaufman. That's it. Yeah, that's a horrible mistake. We'll start with K, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then that's how I screwed it up.
That's all right then. Carry on.
And Mrs. Kristoff.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us, and hope to see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Where's my mouse?